Thank you for that.
You're welcome, Phil.
We are still. Somebody do a quick nose count. Are we getting close? Yeah, we are 4.
Hey, Phil, real quick. Jan, is that our new clerk or?
Yes.
And do
Yeah.
I have her email? I haven't been including her on the emails of applications.
Okay. I'll shoot you a mail with her email, or Jan will shoot you a mail with her email.
If you would, so I can make sure she gets these as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Hi.
So it looks like we have 4.
We do have 4. Good morning, Victoria. 4 is it. We might as well get started. We do have a quorum. Meeting is called to order. We have a special guest presentation today, which I think will be really interesting and really valuable to the city. To follow up by the team that was working on certified local government. So it's down at the bottom of the agenda because I didn't want folks to feel rushed paying attention to this presentation or asking questions. But we do have Linda Mackey, CLG representative for New York State Historic and Community Liaison. She knows Hudson. She knows a lot of us here. We've had a couple of runs at the certification, not get it done. So this should be the charm. And I think we'll get a lot of good information from her presentation. So thank you, Linda, and thank your team. And I'll call you guys in when there you are. Thank you so much for coming down.
Of course. Good morning.
Good morning. I put you at sort of the back of the agenda. We have a bunch of stuff to vote on. And I didn't want you to feel pressure of folks in camera looking like, when are they going to get to me, which folks do for good reason. So if you bear with us, you're going to have to sit through our meeting for a little bit.
That's okay.
All righty. Thank you so much for your patience then. First order of business is to review the minutes from the meeting of August 12. And Jan, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If the commissioners are with me and everybody had an opportunity to review Jan's minutes, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as prepared?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. And Hugh is second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. The minutes are approved. Thanks again, everyone. Next, and I hope I caught everybody, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 C of A votes today. And Victoria, correct me if I'm wrong, they're all signs today.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
everyone had them. We can just vote on them as a package if you want to save time.
Does any commissioner object to voting on 4 Cs of A, 4 signs as prepared by the city attorney?
No objection.
It was the 5 that I sent: 707, 504 Warren, 419 Warren, 17 North 4th, and 136 Warren. And none of them had any conditions or exclusions.
Yeah, let's
Oh.
vote on that as a group.
Hold on one second. I just want to make a note on the agenda, and Jan, you should with me. 409 Warren, I missed on the agenda.
I had 707, 504, 419 Warren,
It's 419 Warren.
17 North 4th,
Yep.
and 136 Warren.
I got everybody except 419. And we'll correct the agenda as posted on the city website.
And just so everyone knows, 419 was Westerland, the sign, so that should jog your memory.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Victoria. Motion to follow the suggestion of our city attorney. Well, we're following the suggestion. A motion to approve the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Cs of A, all signs as prepared by the city attorney.
Motion.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Miranda, for a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? They're all approved. Thanks, Victoria. That was a good suggestion. We've got 3 items, C of A applications that are, well, the first 2 are clearly a carryover from a prior meeting, and 501 is in its own way. If you remember, we asked the applicant to withdraw from discussion of the elevator shaft until we had an opportunity to address that separately. That's my understanding. So that will be coming in as well. Let's start with 717 Columbia Street. Who's here to speak for 717? Anybody? I'll try again. 717 Columbia Street. Anyone here to speak? Okay. They may not be ready with the project. 106, 108 Union Street.
Hey there, Joey.
Joey, terrific.
Joey.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming back.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Can you go ahead today and go back to where we were at, where we got stuck, and share your screen on the issues as you saw it?
Yep, so I was set off on a pretty clear task to find some historical evidence of the configuration of the house as well as the materials. I spent some time with Jim at the history room, and then even followed up in the last 2 weeks. He wasn't able to find any historical photos of my particular house, but in the revised application, I did locate a house circa 1901 on the same block with a very similar facade. It had a 4-bay. It was a 4-bay Italianate row house rather than a 5-bay like mine is. So that's included in my updated materials. And then in terms of the door configuration, which was another question that we were left with, it's going to stay as is in this revised plan based on from inside the house, you can see an original framework for where the door is. So that just meant that I had to come up with a new proposal in terms of rebuilding a sort of porch and portico structure, which is also in this updated version as well. So I think I may have been able to share my screen this time. I'm going to try so I can at least show some of the revisions and hopefully have that.
That would be great. Give it a go.
Let me see. You are screen sharing. All right. Is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the revised main proposal now. You'll see that the configuration of the house remains as is. What I was also able to do in the intervening time since the last time we spoke was I actually sourced a lot of historically salvaged materials with which to use to restore the facade of the house, meaning, let's see, I have all of these materials here. So the porch posts, the door, these are all Victorian Italianate archival materials that I'd be able to acquire and use for this project. Beyond that, I wanted to also show the last time when I was trying to screen share, which was this side shot of the stairwell.
Yes.
So in order to keep the main entrance of the house configured as is, as historically accurate, it would just be a matter of sort of rebuilding, because this isn't very stable. So just with wood, like for like, but rebuilding this sort of porch entrance structure. And then instead of these 2x4s, I would still go ahead with my initial proposal of some kind of a planter rail or something that's a little bit cleaner to look at.
Okay. Is that included today, or we'll pass on that and see what you decide?
Either way, it's included in the updated materials
Okay.
as it is, but that's also something that doesn't have to be decided in it to get this initial work started.
Okay.
Why is this so small? There we go. The last thing I wanted to show was here. You'll see the evidence of the original door configuration from interior of the house. So all of this, it would have had a window above the door, I guess, at one point, but that was the original framing. So that's where it was, and that's where it will stay.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
What else? You had mentioned finding an Italianate row house structure nearby, similar. What were the learnings from that? Did anything transfer to what we're looking at?
Pretty much, actually, all of it did. That was with this initial, I added sort of like an addendum page because I wasn't able to find historical evidence of my particular house. I just sort of went off of historical accuracy as far as like the defining features and characteristics. This house at the bottom of the screen here that you're looking at was a photograph taken in Hudson on Union Street circa 1901, and it has a very similar style to mine. It's got a larger porch, obviously, but the design in my proposal with the window trimmings, the porch posts, the portico, the cornice, all of that has basically been replicated from what this would have likely indicated my house looked like around the same period, even though there's no photograph of the specific address.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
It's great you found that.
Yeah, I was happy to find this at least, especially that it's also on the same street. Maybe they would have been built around the same time, or who's to say, you know?
Okay. What else do you want us to look at, Joey?
That's pretty much it. I mean, I think it's at this point fairly straightforward. I'm just really eager to get some of the materials ordered and get this house looking good again.
Okay, so the outstanding issue was the positioning of the door from the previous meeting, which you've resolved by A, you found evidence, B, you're going to leave it where it was.
Yeah.
And then we wanted you to seek as best you could some historic reference to that house or similar structure from back in the day, and I think you've done that. Anyway, commissioners, I'm bereft without Chip. He usually leads the questioning and discussion, but you guys got to jump in and comments, observations, whatever you want to say.
Joey, first of all, thank you for all this research and work. It's a tremendous improvement. It really overall looks great. I want to ask you about the windows. You're not changing the size of the openings, are you?
No, if anything, I'm just restoring what would have been there as far as a window trim.
Okay.
So it would have been some kind of, decorative Italianate trim, but the dimensions of the windows are remaining as is, as well as the placement of them in their individual bays.
Okay. And what about the glass? Are you replacing the glass in the windows? And if so, with what?
The glass, I believe, is a low energy grade glass. They're pine framed windows with a sort of just a low energy grade 1/1 pane glass.
And currently you have 1/1.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're still proposing to use hardy board as the material for the siding, right?
Preferably, yes. The clapboard look would almost be identical. It's just that it's a more durable and easier to maintain material.
We've used it many times before, Joey, and it seems to work very well.
Great.
The only thing we've ever specified with hardy is that it be smooth surface, not the faux grain.
That's my preferred surface as well, so that's perfect for me.
No, I suspected it would be.
Yeah.
And the door that you've shown us,
Yeah.
it's great that you found that salvage. Are you
Right.
planning to put a transom window over the top of it, or is it just going to be one door?
I wasn't planning to put the transom window back in, just given the way that it is now, especially with the addition of an entrance sort of portico. I think it would sort of be one or the other based on the height of the structure. So I've just gone with the plan of a portico in lieu of the transom window.
Terrific. I think your response to the last meeting is just super, but other folks want to weigh in, or are we ready to have a motion to find the application complete?
I just want to say, Joey, I think what you presented is really beautiful. I too, searched to see if I could find anything older, which I couldn't. But what I find unusual about your house, and I guess it really has nothing to do with what we're looking here, is you have a very unusual roof line. Like in the back. Do you think that was an older structure that was there and the front was added on? I mean, can you see any evidence that the back of the house is older than the front of the house, or?
Well, so based on Jim's research and some of my digging on the internet, it looked like the corner lot at 102, 104 would have been owned by actually Hudson's initial mayor, who had a blacksmith business.
Yeah,
So
I see that.
yeah, so this property at some point or another was also owned by that same sort of configuration. And I don't know if it was used for professional use or as a place to live. After a while, it sort of changed hands and ownership. But I do know that there were about 2 or 3 fires in the 19th century. So things were demolished and rebuilt. So there are likely parts of the house, front or rear, that were rebuilt after some kind of deterioration or fire or whatnot. But yeah, the roof line is particularly strange.
And the siding that's currently on the front of the house, will you be removing that and replacing that with the hardy board?
Yeah, all 4 sides of the house. So right now, the front of the house has I think it's like a 6-inch clapboard, which will be the identical finished look to what's replacing it, but it will be replaced.
Okay, and just when you're taking that down, what you might find are ghost images of what was there.
Mm-hmm.
Should you uncover anything, it might provide an even better guide as
Mm-hmm.
to what you might want to do.
Yeah.
Now, in the photo on the right, the chimney is gone. Are you keeping a chimney? You're removing it, or?
That was sort of optional. That chimney actually doesn't function anymore. There is a larger stack in the back that's attached to the main hearth of the house, and that's going to remain. I just have to, when the roofing is done, just make sure that it's got a proper seal on the top, one of the chimney screens or whatnot, because right now it's just currently open. But this one on the south-facing side is inoperable.
Does that go directly to the furnace, or were there fireplaces along that line?
That one doesn't connect to anywhere in the interior of the house. The one in the rear side of the house on the north side does. It connects to the fire source in all floors of the house to the basement. But this one looks like it was disassembled over years. It doesn't. There's no furnace in the ground level or anything connecting to it.
But it does run all the way down to the basement, correct?
No, it sort of stops in the first and second floors, and then in the basement there's now a gas line where the wood burning fire would have been.
Okay.
Joey,
I have a question.
Yep.
No, go, Jeremy, you go first.
No, I just wanted to appreciate all the work you did on this. I just have one comment, and it's really more stylistic than anything else. I'm just looking at the posts on the portico, and they just seem slightly diminutive by comparison to the rest of the size. So I realize you're pulling those from other places, but it just feels they feel small and inconsequential compared to the rest of the building.
Okay. I believe there's 6 by 6 inch posts, which is pretty standard. So maybe the rendering is not doing it justice, but that's something to definitely keep in mind.
Do we have specs for the posts and for the railings? Do we know what specifically they are?
Yeah, so that's going to be, this here has the actual photos and dimensions of all of the materials, as well as a sketched out drawing.
And I'm so sorry because this is my first time seeing this. Is there what's the source? Like, what is the source that inspired those posts? Like, do you have is that the other house, or is this something that you know is there?
Yeah, no, not that specifically was at 106, 108, but this is just based on walking the surrounding blocks and homes that have similar porticos, as well as just doing salvage research and trying to find something from this specific time period from this region. And was happy to find these. They don't look like Greco-Roman columns. They look definitely more Victorian, obviously. So that was important to me. So that was the thought behind incorporating those.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the posts themselves don't particularly say Hudson to me.
Okay.
Given all the many portraits we've looked at, the spindles are fantastic. But those. That said, I wouldn't follow on this. I don't know if others have an opinion.
I do think most of those houses do have some kind of portico over the front door. It's a practical thing too for.
I don't mean the portico, I mean the posts.
Yeah,
Those
style of the
those
posts.
ornate
Yeah.
Victorian posts is what I'm referring to.
I agree. I'm not going to make it a sticking point. It was just more of a comment.
Okay,
Sure.
good. May I ask for a motion to find the application complete? Anyone?
I'll
Motion.
make that
I'll make
motion.
it.
It sounds like I'll go with you and Jeremy.
That works.
Motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? None. The application is found complete.
Chairman, before you vote, I was taking notes and I wasn't clear if the chimney is proposed to stay or come down as part of this.
We didn't actually rule on that, but my understanding is the applicant was clear. I think it was his intention to take the dead chimney down. Is that correct?
Yeah, if that's not visually disturbing, it doesn't serve a purpose. So that would be fine by me.
You will have a remaining chimney on the roof, as I understand it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I guess. Okay.
Okay.
May I have a motion to request the city to waive a public hearing and request the city attorney to prepare a C of A?
Phil, can I just say, I don't know, is there any more I thought the chimney was maybe going to be discussed eventually. I don't know if anyone else.
Well, where we're at now, Paul, is we found the application complete. We can pause on voting on the request to the city attorney if you have something you want to say further about the chimney.
Just that I didn't think it was fully discussed. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about the chimney going away. That's all.
Well, I'll state my view. I think I know what it's like to have dead chimneys. They're not a valuable item, and if visually the building still is represented with a chimney, I think that's fair. I don't know how much of an impact that would have on the streetscape or anything else, but I personally would be okay with taking one chimney down and leaving one. But other folks weigh in?
I agree with Phil. You know, it's a dead chimney. It only goes down a floor or so. And there is the other chimney, so I don't think it's an important detail.
I agree as well.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay.
May I go ahead then with, I'm sorry, John? What were we saying?
It's fine.
I have
Okay.
a quick question, Phil.
Yep.
The chimney in the existing picture is there, and the new proposal picture to the right, there's no chimney. Can we specifically identify what chimney is staying, what chimney is going, and where, of course, the new chimney is going to be? Because I don't see one on the proposed.
There won't be a new chimney. I can take that. I have a photo of the exterior of the current, or the roof even. Let's see if I can find.
It would be helpful. Which direction is the house
Here.
facing?
So this is the actual chimney that still exists. It's part of the main hearth, the wood burning heating source of the actual house.
So that's the one that's in use, Joey.
Yes, that will stay, and it's bigger. It's about twice or three times the size of the one on the south facing facade of the house.
South facing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and also on your proposal, is any of the work you're proposing going to take place on the side or the rear of the structure?
In terms of siding, just the siding, yes, and then windows like for like, just where they are with what I've proposed in terms of material.
So all that has to be included in the C of A. Because it's the property within the district, not just the front.
Right.
Yeah, so just to repeat, the entire house is going to have a new finish of hardy plank.
Yes.
Okay. Then we'll include that. Thank you.
Yep.
Please,
Terrific.
specify, as we often do when we remove siding, that if the property owner discovers any historical detail underneath the current siding, that he'll come back to us about whether to keep it or what to do with it.
We will. It's actually boilerplate in all the Cs of A now. But absolutely we'll include it. So one more time, I lost track. May I have a motion and a second to waive a public hearing and ask the city attorney to prepare a C of A? Miranda, thank you. And a second? Jeremy, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Unanimous? Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your work, Joey.
Thank you all.
We are at 501 Union Street and specifically elevator shaft. We've done this this project in pieces, and we had asked the applicant to defer discussion on the elevator shaft. So Walter, you're on.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you for hearing us yet again. May I share my screen?
Please.
Okay, am I sharing?
Yes, just
You are.
enlarge your screen if you can, so that we
can.
can see it better.
Been practicing night and day for this moment to
Great
Yeah.
job, Walter.
Thank you. I'll try and go through very quickly. So I believe you've seen most of this information in previous submittals, and thank you again for letting me keep coming back. As you can imagine, this project is evolving as we're learning things, and the elevator looks like it now is a very real possibility. So with your blessing, perhaps we can move forward with that.
Walter, I appreciate you wanting to recap, but I don't want to relitigate stuff. We've approved this application in various aspects about 3 times now.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And so I'm just sticking with the elevator shaft, and I'll walk you through very quickly then, and then we'll talk about whatever you think. This is a section that shows how the elevator would attach to the building at the back, and we would propose building the shaft, and there is an existing dormer there. We would extend that dormer. These are just floor plans, so you can see the intended way that the floors would be serviced. And also, I think they established that we really don't have room to put the elevator inside, which is the first thing that we, of course, considered. This you've seen, so I'll just keep moving. This is new information. Specifically, Chip at the last meeting had asked to see what this the enclosure for the trash and maintenance would look like.
Yes, he did.
So I've thrown that in with the proposal for a material, and our current material proposal for the shaft is stucco, but I'm authorized to say that if the material proposed for the trash and maintenance enclosure is also to your liking, we would offer to put it on the shaft as well. And that is actually a pre-painted corrugated metal that is finished to look like it's rusted old corrugated metal. So kind of a scenographic attempt to put something on the back of the building that might look like it had been there, but clearly was an addition. So the 2 options we're proposing are stucco and a kind of treated corrugated metal. And those are both acceptable to us. And then I just wanted to show you very quickly, there is a existing brick chimney on the building, and I had personally ruled out brick because I think this is terribly unsuccessful. And so that is one thing that led me away from brick, just to say why we weren't proposing brick. And then the location of the shaft is here. These openings, the windows openings will actually be enlarged and serve the elevator. And as I say, there's a dormer up there that will be brought forward to make the 4th floor. And then finally, this is a very nice photograph, I think, that shows we're going to take this down. The shaft will be right there. And either with this existing or replacement landscaping, we will attempt to screen it. And hopefully it will be very a good neighbor. And this is the neighbor it faces, and you can see the majority of their facade across from the facade is blank. And I think that's my presentation.
Okay.
Walter?
Yeah, go ahead.
Walter?
Yes.
So is that chimney shaft going to come down or remain?
We're proposing taking that shaft down, Paul. It was the old boiler flue for the building, added in the 20th century.
And then the elevator shaft goes there, and existing window openings then become access to each floor?
Yes, so here's a drawing, I think you can see this, that has the outlines of the windows would be obliterating, plus one that is in the stairwell here on the 1st floor that we would want to close up. That we would close with brick or stucco, leave a recess, like a blind window. These, nature has given us the opportunity in this line to fairly easily connect the elevator, via the doors on the inside of the shaft to the building.
And the 4th floor, then, that would continue to look like the shaft?
Yes, let me see if I can show this side view here. So that's what we would intend. So we'd kind of do what I kind of joke about as a kind of face hugger dormer. It would hopefully appear like the dormer was still there, and that actually would be enlarged to allow a passage. We'd have to frame around it and get into that top floor from the elevator. And then the elevator by code the shaft has to extend enough for a person, if they're servicing the elevator, and God forbid it starts to go up, for them to have a place to shelter. So that's it. It's a very straightforward shaft, and we would be open to any suggestions you have. I was thinking it would be very plain, and we'd depend on its being hidden and perhaps eventually some vines to bring it back into the neighborhood.
Walter, what capacity is the elevator?
3,500 pounds.
No, is that like a 1 or a 2 person or?
No, good question, Paul. Unfortunately, you can imagine we wanted to make the smallest intrusion we could. And we're required, the code officer can confirm this, because there's a 4th floor, to have a stretcher capable elevator. So 3,500 pounds in one model and 3,300 pounds in another are the 2 options that we're looking at.
Okay.
But it has to be large enough, and we would turn that lengthwise so that you'll see in this elevation here, it's not,
Okay, thank you.
Guys, anybody want to weigh in? Walter had proposed a materials option for the exterior stucco, which I think is much of what's being used on the rest of the building, and notion of aged or rusted out metal finish. Thoughts, anybody?
Walter, the plaster is going to be applied over the brick of the whole building.
No, sorry, that's a different project. We're trying to save the existing brick, and we're going to clean it. And if it, it's a polyglot of brick, as you may remember, there was a fire escape.
Yeah.
So we've put it back as best we could and gotten the best matching brick to bring in. We're going to gently clean it. And if it looks wonderful and the shutters cover some of the sins, we'll leave it. Otherwise, we'll probably paint it with an appropriate paint.
This corrugated rusted material there, that's what you're thinking of cladding it in? That's what you're suggesting?
Well, I was thinking that this would be a wonderful thing to clad the shed that Chip had asked about in. And then I happened to run into Miranda while she was walking Toast. And she and I had a lively discussion about materials. And she said, gee, maybe a metal would be, I don't know, more appropriate. And this is not a disingenuous comment. I consider my relationship with this board to have evolved into a kind of partnership. So when I get a comment like that, rather than thinking over my dead body, I think, maybe I'll fly that and see what people think. So I'm open. We would like, for very important practical reasons, to build a shaft. Your board has all kinds of reasons to want to make sure that it doesn't detract from the neighborhood, goals we share, so we stand to be directed.
What's the view line to the side view of it? So when you showed us that side view, if you can jump back to there. Yes.
So that's, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Oh, so that's Fifth Street.
That's Fifth Street. That elevator, I believe, is about 17 or 20 feet back from the street at that point. So, you know, we put it in the middle of the building for two reasons. One, the Secretary of the Interior said to do that if you can, at the back in the middle, so it's least visible from any side. And the other reason is it works pretty well in plan. We just had to take out an important part of an apartment that I'm still struggling with, but that's another problem. So I think for me, it's up to you all. These shafts exist in Hudson. The most obvious example is Hudson Hall, where obviously some very skilled people did a very, very nice job. And there they made a brick shaft, but they were very careful to separate it from the building, so you would never mistake that for fabric. Here, you know, the Secretary of the Interior says, I think don't make it brick, is what I'm reading, or if you make it brick, make it different. So, you know, what do you all think? Where should we go with this?
Walter, just to clarify, this is the driveway side, correct?
Yes, Paul, this
Yes.
would be, I don't know if my drawing is readable, but there's a line here that's meant to represent the property line. So we have a single drive lane and a little landscaping thing right there.
I think it's a very good solution. Makes the building more usable, of course. And while I initially go with stucco, because I think it's more in keeping with the era this building was built, I'm not opposed to the rusted metal panel. Is it possible, and I don't know if it really give me any more of a live image of what this would look like, to do a possible rendering of the shaft with the metal on it? Or,
Yeah.
I think that it might help us all just envision how it would look, because it is a large scale addition to the building. It's high, and although set back, it is going to be noticeable.
I think. Oh, sorry.
Go
No,
ahead.
I apologize. No, please, you finished. I thought you were done.
I'm done.
Is the rusted appearance metal for siding for this shaft? I thought it was for the dumpster.
It is, and I'm sorry if I'm confusing things. I was anticipating, based on my discussion with Miranda, that the committee might like to see some options. So I believe our choice in option number one would be to stucco the shaft. We have a really excellent stucco, or you guys can go look at the Alger House at 59 Allen and judge whether he knows his stuff or not. And we would be very happy to put that stucco on this shaft. But if that wasn't something that was agreeable, and I would just add, we'd probably tint it a color to try and get it close to the brick, because it will be clearly distinct no matter what. That would, in my mind, pass the squint test, where it doesn't leap out as a foreign element. The corrugated metal is actually a little riskier, because I think that that's a stronger visual element. It's more in keeping with the zeitgeist and the kind of steampunk aesthetic that you see around Hudson. So I like it. And I certainly am serious about proposing it for our trash enclosure and would like you to consider it for the trash enclosure. My preference, and I believe Eric's preference for the shaft is stucco, but again, we're here to hear what you guys think this should be, because everybody, it's going to be visible. There's no question you'll see it. When you take an aerial tour of Hudson, this will show up.
Walter, I'm just going to say that I think that this drawing you're probably better off with a different type of rendering, because this drawing makes it look perhaps more conspicuous than it would be. I would be strongly opposed to I'm one voice, but I would be very strongly opposed to the rusted corrugated metal as siding for an element this large. I get it, it's steampunk, it's 2022, but we're here for 2072 also. So I think the stucco to me is much preferable for this
I mean,
element.
I agree. As I said originally, I think the stucco is probably the way to go, but if there's a strong leaning by the commission to see what the cladding would look like, then we need to see more. But just my gut feeling in terms of the design and era of this building, stucco, even a tinted stucco, is more appropriate. And if we all feel that way, then we don't have to see the rendering of the clad and just go with the stucco.
I'm with, for what it's worth, I'm with stucco also. I think that the rusted thing could be at least something slightly more interesting than usual wood panel door or whatever to hide the garbage. And I think that would be fine, but on the building, not so much. I do believe it should be stucco for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah, no, I'd go with the stucco as well.
I
So
agree.
we don't need to see a rendering of the metal.
No, I don't think. What about on the hiding facade for
I think it's fine.
garbage?
The garbage enclosure is fine. It's like a
Okay.
structural,
Yeah.
it seems like the right material for the right job in the garbage enclosure.
Okay.
Well
By
said.
the way, just for the record, since Toast and I have been invoked in this,
Yeah,
I just want to say there were actually three options that we were debating. One was brick, one was stucco, and one was this metal. And the idea behind what we were talking about was clearly this is a new element being added to an old building. And we didn't want to try to make it appear old because we knew that that would not be acceptable. I mean, that wouldn't be successful. It would stick out even if it were brick. So that's why we talked about the stucco or the metal as being something that would clearly indicate it as a new addition, but something that was attached to an old building.
Okay.
So as that goes to, I think the stucco is a fine option. I think the color of the stucco matters, and it would be, but I'm sure I trust Walter's taste, and I definitely think the metal's a great idea for the trash
Perfect.
enclosure.
Terrific, Miranda. Thank you. Good and really good discussion. May I have a motion then to find the application complete?
make that motion.
Thank you so much, Paul. In a second.
Second,
Thanks you. All in favor?
Aye,
Are there any opposed? The application is complete. May I have a motion to waive a public hearing and request the city attorney to prepare a C of A?
I make
I'll
that
make-
motion.
Paul,
I'll
thank
second.
you. And a second, Jeremy, in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Carried.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, Walter, thank you for great work. Is 620, Craig pointed out earlier this morning that there was an application from 624. We had missed those folks in the prior meeting. I'm trying to be a little more disciplined about using this meeting just for voting rather than new applications, but we made a mistake on this, so we're offering 624 an opportunity to present.
They sent me an email saying they were on the meeting. 624 Warren Street, should be Rue de Costa.
Don't see him.
I don't see him either.
I don't see those names, Craig.
Is that Lori Puff?
Yes,
Mhm.
Laurie Puff, that's right. Well, see him next month.
Okay, just, we have these terrific folks from the state. And I asked the commission to give a HPC traditional welcome. to Linda Mackey and co. Linda, you're on board.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the
Good morning.
invitation to present this morning. I'm happy to, no problem waiting through the applicants because it's more important to get that business done first so the applicants aren't waiting. But I did actually, this is going to be a similar presentation that I did a few years ago pre-COVID. My colleague Dan McEnany and I came down to do a kind of introductory presentation about like first who we are at SHPO just briefly, and then talking about the CLG program. But let me share my screen. I do have a PowerPoint. Let me see, share. And let me go to.
You're on.
Awesome. Let me start from the beginning. Let's see. Slideshow from beginning.
Oh, this is great.
There we go. Okay, so everyone can see that? Perfect. Okay. So this morning, I'm just going to briefly talk about who we are at SHPO, just some of the various programs. Some of them are applicable to you in Hudson, and then discuss the CLG program, a little bit greater detail. So we at SHPO, we administer various state and federal programs established under the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966, which established all the SHPOs, established the National Register of Historic Places, Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, that's our regulatory review, the Federal Commercial Rehabilitation Tax Credit, and the CLG program, which actually amendment to 1980, but it did fall under the federal programs. Now, state programs basically mirror the federal programs. We have the state register, Section 1409 of the New York State Historic Preservation Act. We have state commercial and homeowner tax credit programs. I'll go into that a little bit greater detail. There are grants for restoration, acquisition, for National Register listed properties. And we do a lot of public outreach and education, a lot of workshops. We do tax credit workshops, even just overviews of the Bureau. We try and make sure that, we kind of let people know who we are. So for Section 106 and 1409, our review is triggered by that state federal involvement. So it's projects that involve money, any funding, permitting, or licensing. The resources that are determined eligible for the National Register are treated the same as if they are listed. Agencies, they have to take into account their actions on historic resources, and that's where we come in. And the goal is always to avoid, minimize, or mitigate any adverse impacts. CRIS, this is our Cultural Resource Information System. This was released back in 2014. It's a GIS-based system that is publicly accessible. We basically track all our projects through this system. There's a lot of data behind it. We scanned a lot of inventory forms, our eligibilities, our National Register nominations are there. So even architectural surveys are there. So a lot of information is held in there, and statewide inventory. You can search. This is Albany, but you can search in Hudson and see what we've looked at, what's on the National Register, maybe what areas have been surveyed. It definitely is a lot of data is behind that system. State and national registers, of course, that is our official list of building sites, structures, boats, you name it, significant in history at the local, state, and national levels. Generally, we have that 50-year threshold that was established by the National Park Service, kind of gives a property a little time to gain some age, some significance. Properties must meet at least one of the 4 criteria. So that's associated with an important event or theme, significant person, could be architecture, the design of the building, or it could be yielding information, which is more archaeology, but it does have to retain integrity to convey that significance as well. Listing on the National Register, just kind of like local designation, it provides greater consideration of public planning. Where do you want to direct your new developments? Where do you want to protect resources? Unlike landmarks, National Register is only a measure of protection for impacts from the state and federal projects. There is eligibility, though, financial incentives for this state and federal tax credit program and the grants. But just like local designation, it is honorary and recognizing those significant resources in your community. So it's that recognition. So in Hudson, we have a few National Register listed properties and historic districts. And I like to show this because it leads in the tax credits. You'll see the historic resources in that pink shaded area, and then the qualifying census tract, that's a key for the state credit, that is in that orangey kind of peach color. So clearly Hudson, the whole city is in a qualifying census tract, which is great. Now with tax credits first, just briefly about the homeowner tax credit. It's a 20%. You have to own the building and live in the house. Project cost must be a minimum of $5,000, which depending on what you're doing, that's kind of an easy threshold to meet. 5% of the total project expenditures have to be on the exterior because it is that public benefit. So it could be something with your porch, your cornice, your roof, even solar panel installation, but at least 5% have to be on the exterior. Work does need to be pre-approved by SHPO before you begin. And the property must be in that orangey peach kind of color, the eligible census tract. Now for income producing property, so this is commercial, it could be a rental property. There is a 20% federal rehabilitation tax credit. And then somewhat new, we have a 20% or 30% state rehabilitation tax credit for the income producing properties. And the key for the 30%, which is the new, probably within the past year, it was approved. If the total project qualified expenditures are under 2.5 million, then it is 30% for the state credit. Anything above, 20%. The hay still anywhere from 40 to 50% back, and tax credits are a dollar for dollar reduction on the state or federal income tax that you owe. So it's not a grant, but it is that it's definitely a worthwhile program. And generally, what this covers, you could do on the outside if it's repairing or replacing windows. It could be masonry, it could be your siding, can be your roof. You can install solar panels on your roof, depending on visibility and how it's being attached. On the inside, it also counts for the floors, your doors, your trim. It can account for the mechanicals, your furnace. You want to put some AC in your house. So your plumbing, I mean, it covers nuts to bolts inside, outside of the house. It does not cover additions that are, outside the building footprint. It does not cover landscaping or fencing. But I think what it does cover is the bulk of what you would probably be considering when you are making repairs to your house. Now, what buildings qualify? Listed individually on the state and national register. Listed as a contributing building to a historic district, located in a local district that has been certified by the National Park Service. That is a separate process, and also individual buildings or historic districts that are in the process of listing. And we call those preliminary determinations of eligibility. And I've done a few of those. I cover New York City, most of New York City for state and national register. And I've done both individual buildings and districts that are in the process of listing. And then the tax shredder process is separate, but it can happen just about a little bit of timing, but it's certainly definitely various options. So just, it's not just us out there. I like to also toss out some other state and national groups. Specifically, I'm sure you're familiar with the Preservation League of New York State, our statewide nonprofit partner. They're definitely a good resource, technical guidance. They have a few grant programs. There are actually recently the technical assistance grants. They have Preserve New York grants that fund survey and national register, which is very helpful. I also want to point out the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions. They have an excellent email listserv, very active. You would be communicating with people that, just like you, that are on historic commissions around the country. There's also some of the administrative staff. I'm sure the National Park Service on there. You name it, the topic, people are jumping in and offering ideas. So definitely a good resource, and it is free to sign up for that. So I think that is the introductory about us at SHPO and some other groups. I want to dive into the CLG program now. So this program, really, it is more of a benefit incentive kind of program, but the goal really is for us to assist local communities, integrating that local preservation with us at the state and federal level. It promotes best practices. We have our state model law that was updated in 2014. There's design standards. I want to make sure everyone's speaking the same language. No one's making it up as they go along. So it's kind of like the umbrella program that we're here to assist everybody. And how did the CLGs come to be? You recognize, of course, Grand Central. This was after, Penn Station, and they went after Grand Central, but New York City, luckily, had already designated Grand Central as a landmark. So they said, nope, Penn Central, you cannot construct your 50-foot office tower on top of Grand Central Station. Took them to court. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the city, pretty much making local preservation laws constitutional, which is great. And the CLG program that was established shortly thereafter in 1980. So again, we have that umbrella program because there were various communities throughout the country that had local preservation already in place, probably since the 1930s. But this way, we have that connection, that kind of like that mothership. So everyone has a resource to go to. Across the country, there's over 2,000 CLGs, and here in New York, we have 73. So some of the basic requirements, creating and enforcing legislation. So you have the designation and protection of your historic resources. The law would have to be in keeping with the model, which I can share. Establishing and maintaining a qualified historic commission. So everyone, minimum, we want everybody to have that commitment to preservation. But if you have an architect, you have a realtor, if you have some preservation professional, it's good to have those on board as well. Maintaining a system for survey and inventory. Got to get out there and know what you have so you know what to protect and designate. And providing for public participation. That's basically meeting the New York State Open Meetings Law, which you do already. Also, some of the requirements once you are a CLG, we do have an annual report form, very basic, like a 2-page or Word document, just so we know just kind of more of what you've been doing over the year. We have 73, so we don't communicate with everybody all the time. So it's good to know, how many projects you've looked at. Do you need training from SHPO? Have you participated in training? What are some of the goals, objectives for the next year? Is there something you need from us? So it's good. And we do read those. So we do like to check in as well once we see something, because something that maybe some goals and objectives could be something that can be funded as a CLG grant project. So one of those benefits. We do ask, usually this is around the annual report time, to submit a resume and contact information for any new members on the commission, just so we know who's who. And also, if you're proposing to amend your local law, that you submit those amendments to us, just take a look at, just make sure it's in keeping with the model, Generally, most stuff is okay, but it's just that double checking. We do an audit every 4 years. We do this now remotely, and it's pretty, we've done for the past couple of years, it's gone pretty well. It's more just making sure, basically looking at all the aspects of the program, looking at a few sample C of A applications. Have you amended your ordinance? Current list of the commission members? Have you done any survey work? Anything beyond, reviewing C of A's? Are there other goals that you've been working on? And also check to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. When you become a CLG, we do sign an agreement document where we provide, certain services and technical assistance. And then there's certain things that the CLG has to also commit to. So the model law updated, as I mentioned, in 2014. Back then, my predecessors traveled around the state to see, what are some of the loopholes, what were some of the gaps that needed to be filled in, because the previous law was in the 1980s. So a couple decades, we learned a little thing, learned a little bit, and the model law was not so much strengthening the power of a commission, but more clarifying, because we all know in the law, it's how everything is phrased and interpreted. Designation does not require owner consent. This is kind of one of those sticky points for some communities. It can be modified with the bounds to fit your needs. There are certain sections that need to be there, but you can tweak certain sections because every community is different. Timelines, if you want to provide different kind of violation penalties, if you want to keep the designation at the commission versus recommending up to the governing board, there's ways to really tweak it to make sure that it fits the needs of your community. Benefits, got to get to the benefits. We do have a Clg Grant Program. We are required to pass through 10% of our federal dollars to our Clg partners, and we do that through the competitive grant. I have a few more slides on that. Technical training and assistance. So we can do in-person training. We have actually our conference that's coming up next month. There are scholarships for commission members and staff to attend. If you're not a CLG, more than welcome to still attend the conference, of course. It's in Syracuse. We do also, if there's any kind of local issues that need to be worked out, if the commission needs some assistance, we have participated on conference calls. We've submitted letters. We try and do what we can to support the mission of the Historic Commission. Bit more about grants. They're more, I would say, planning grants, but they cover a lot of different topics. Surveys, if you need to update a survey, National Register nominations, or even updating, amending National Register nominations. A lot of districts, we're seeing updates because they were listed back in the 1980s. So some of the nominations are like maybe 2 pages, which we don't do that anymore. We got to have a complete building list, maybe accounting for, other areas of significance, maybe the period of significance. So that's certainly an option. The training, that's more, I would say, a regional training. So if you wanted to reserve a space, invite people, speakers, invite nearby communities to attend, that's that kind of training. Workshops, we've done a few. I've done one down in Greenport. It was kind of a all-day event talking about the history of the commission, the community, talk about the C of A process, tax credits, some testimonials. It was actually a pretty good informational training. Publications, design guidelines are great. We're seeing more of those, which is helpful for commission members, the developers, applicants to really get to know, what are the expectations of a commission when you are submitting a project for review. Certainly walking tour brochures, heritage tourism. Really the goal is that the grant should go back to support the mission of the Historic Commission and local preservation in general. And a few examples, I did update this recently. Some of mine were a little old. Albany did a brochure about sustainability, which is very helpful. They have a lot of early buildings, just like Hudson. So just providing some general guidance and information about how you can, repair your house, make it a bit more weather stripping, It's very helpful. Design guidelines, Saratoga. Again, it takes that mystery out of the expectation of what needs to be approved or reviewed. Generally would have a lot of photos, examples, sketch drawings, really putting the code requirements into a document with visuals to make it clear to all the applicants. Something relatively new, Village of New Paltz, they did a video educational project. This is available on their website and on YouTube. It was actually, it was funny, they filmed some of it, of course, in New Paltz, the good stuff. And then the project, the do's and don'ts. So the don'ts, they actually filmed up here in Waterford. It's a National Register district, but so it doesn't have that level of protection. So some of the incorrect windows, porches, they filmed them up here, just so, you know, if you filmed all the bad stuff down in New Paltz, people are like, wait, that's so-and-so's house, you know. So it was actually really good, a really helpful, you know, project for them. Also for a, you know, public outreach and education for the group. I do share this with a lot with people. Yes, the architecture is New Paltz, but the general concepts crosses all, you know, all municipalities. Buffalo, their preservation ready survey, huge survey. I think this is probably one of our largest funded projects, about 60,000. This was in a industrial area. They did a conditions assessment, eligibility assessment, really planning for future projects in the city. And I think in general, probably didn't mention this first, but for the grants, they can range anywhere from a few thousand up to, you know, here 60,000. It depends on the project. Things cost, you know, design guidelines, surveys, National Register, you know, videos. The project cost does vary. So there's never any minimum or maximum. We do ask for up to a 40% match, but that's not required. It's just more to spread that money out to as many communities as possible. And that can be donated time, volunteer time, a cash match. So there's definitely different options. And those grants are, we send out the applications in January, February timeframe. And then we usually make a decision probably April, May. You get a 2-year window to complete them. Application is very easy to complete. Talk to us early and we can help you focus on whatever project you're thinking about, so you can have a successful application. You have a lot of nearby CLGs, so definitely some neighbors. I'm not sure, we don't track all the non-CLGs, so you might have some other neighbors beyond this list, but definitely varying in you know, city, town, village, size, and architecture type. And so local commission, you guys already do this, designate, recommend historic properties, basis of local criteria, local procedures, and the law. You educate property owners on best practices. You also, you know, the big bulk of it is really those C of A reviews, looking at exterior changes to historic resources, looking at demolitions, opening that door to alternatives, to protect those local resources. So a lot of a lot of duties. You guys already do this. And just an example I like to show, especially communities that do not have a historic commission, just to see the benefit of it. You have a building that is not protected out in Syracuse, and before renovation, it does need a little TLC, of course. During renovation, I don't know how that pediment is still intact and hasn't collapsed yet, but you see some of the historic features on the side there that have been removed, and this is after. So this would not have happened if this building was in Hudson because you have that local protection and you have that historic commission. But this is something that is pretty an obvious example of why you know, we have historic commissions and they protect their historic resources and neighborhoods. And that is my overall presentation, just a little content information here at the end. I'm now the CLG coordinator statewide. So I'm going to be working with 73 CLGs now and maybe more once more come on board. But please, this is the end of my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions because I did toss out a lot of information to you. So please, I know it's a little bit challenging virtually, but please feel free, raise your hand or just.
Linda,
Yes.
it's Phil. We had given this a go. I don't even remember now, probably 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the process was sending you, although you probably already have it, our local law 169, which is the defining document for a lot of what we do, as well as it's where we connect with Craig, with code enforcement, who really drives a lot of this in terms of what happens in the real world. I think at the time, and I'm not sure, that our hesitation in going forward was not that the benefits of SHPO are not obvious, and being a certified government are not obvious. They're great benefits, and I at least from my point of view, absolutely desirable. Our hesitation was that, as I understood it, you needed to make some modifications to what I'll just call what 169, and they weren't major.
Okay.
They were minor, but it would require relitigating 169 through the Common Council, because they're the only entity in Hudson that can modify city code.
Yep.
And I think that's where we got lost in the weeds, and maybe we didn't understand. But if you could comment on some of that.
Oh, sure. I'll have to take a look at your law again and see where our comments were. Yeah, I'll have to take a look. But yes, if there was something, I'm not sure if it was, oh God, I have to take a look at my notes. But those are just recommendations just to make sure that is in keeping with the model. I think one thing might have been, I'm not sure if replacement windows were like considered minor. I forgot. I would have to take a look at the code again, but I'm happy to send you a list of those recommendations. Take a second look at the law and see if those sections still, I would recommend some modification, and then we can take it from there. Hopefully, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and with the attorney to see if they had any questions or concerns with the modification. I'm used to communicating with both.
That would be great, and I appreciate that, and possibly we'll see how that goes. We'll include code enforcement in that conversation as well, to the degree that it impacts on Craig's world. But that, to me, that's a fantastic next step. I'll shut up. I didn't mean to consume so much time, but we tried to get this done before, and I really want to give it a go this time.
I think another
Lynn?
concern at the time was whether we had to change the boundaries of the historic district in such a way that it would include the entire city of Hudson. I think that there were people who were concerned about that at the time.
Nope, boundaries stay the same. We do not require you to change boundaries. The CLG is the city, but as far as any historic district, landmark, what you have can remain the same. It's up to the local commission. If you want to amend, if you want to designate more, that is at the local level. We do not require you to consider the whole city historic district.
Okay.
Linda?
Mm-hmm.
If we were a CLG, then what like reporting or maintenance would be required on our end to, I guess, submit to you to continue to stay eligible?
So the annual report, and I can actually send you an example of it. It's just a Word document, maybe maybe a dozen questions, and it's just checking in, like how many meetings did you have the past year? How many maybe C of A's? Did you participate in any training? Do you need training from SHPO? What are your goals the next year? It's more of a narrative instead of a lot of numbers, and that we try and make that as simple as possible. We send that out along with the grant applications in January, February. So we moved away from the long-winded Excel spreadsheet. We have just a simple Word document. So it's just some basic questions.
And who is that usually submitted by in the different municipal, like who does it? Who physically?
It could be, it varies. It could be the chair of the commission, if you have staff, if you have a secretary. It could be, it's really, you can designate who you want to complete that form. And we would make sure to include their contact information in our email list. And we ideally include all the commission members in our email blasts.
And has there ever been a CLG town that has actually lost their CLG or has let it lapsed or?
Not because of annual reporting. It's more because we also catch that when we do the audit every 4 years. We look to see, hey, did they submit their annual reports the previous 4 years? We're not going to decertify them for that. We give an opportunity like, hey, we need you to catch up on your paperwork. Decertification will only happen if, let's say, the law is not in compliance, and that's more if they want to include something with owner consent. It would be if maybe the commission, we have problems right now where the commission in one community has maybe 2 members instead of the 5, and they might want to just even remove the commission from the municipality. So it has to be pretty egregious for decertification. So no, we do not, there's also, if a village dissolves and is part of the town now, we do certify just because there's no more village and the town can reapply. So it's different things, but we're not overly strict with, again, we're not going to decertify somebody for not completing the annual reports on time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
I've got a few questions. So when Paul and I were going through this, this was months ago, right, Paul? One of the
Yes.
things we recognized is that going for something like this changes the expectations of this group in a pretty substantial way. Right now, when we look at what we do, it's a very reactive posture where, we have submissions to us, we opine on them, and then things move forward. This would mean a much more proactive stance on how we're monitoring all of the buildings in this district, the register and infrastructure we need to set up, and a kind of commitment to applying for grants and having the membership in this group to drive those grants forward, considering the time that it takes to do that. So I think we need to reflect as a group and determine that, are we really willing to commit the time and effort to do this? Because this is a big step forward. I'm not saying we're not, but I just think it's a discussion that we need to have. And also think about the technology infrastructure we need to stand up. Right now, we really don't have the procedures and technologies in place to track all of the different buildings inside of the historic district and their history, as well as even all of the decisions that we're making. I mean, we have the notes right now, but we don't really have the rigor in place to get some of these things up and running out of the box. So I think it's something we need to talk about as a group and really say to ourselves, if we are going to move to this more proactive, applying for grants, really being the governing body around this, as opposed to reacting to what comes to us, we need to say, are we the right set of people? Are we committed to giving that time? I don't know, just some thoughts that, Paul and I had talked about a few months ago.
Can I respond to that? Because it seems to me that the list that Linda just showed includes the village of Kinderhook, a much smaller entity than the city of Hudson. And presumably, Linda, maybe you could react to what Jeremy's saying. You know a little bit about Hudson, surely, but is the lift for us that large? Is there any guidance you can give?
I don't think so. I think that I would have to look at your code, but I think there's a process in place if property owners are in violation. There's a process to go to code enforcement. So there's not so much that, for grants, you are not required to apply every year. Not everybody, there's some people that have never applied for a grant. Some did when they first became a CLG. It was like, oh, let's do a survey. But it really, if you don't need certain, products, then do not worry about applying for a grant, because it is, some communities, they hold off on a few years, for like, oh, we need a break, we'll apply in a couple of years for design guidelines. We really want design guidelines, just wait until we have, the time and commitment to do this. So that's perfectly fine. Tracking every building, I think that, you have, I would assume, the National Register, so you have some documentation there. We do not, we're not overly enforced, the 5-year, you have to update your inventory. we haven't enforced that for quite some time, but I think it's more a placeholder to make sure that you keep track of things. But I think, if there are property owners in violation, you would catch that, you would catch these certain things. A lot of commissions are similar as you, where, you gotta have a pretty good website, better than some communities. You already have an active commission, you have your process in place, you have your agendas in minutes, you track everything like everybody else, which is great. I think the Clg program, I think the lift would be the annual report, the audit every 4 years. If you apply for a grant, if that's something that you're interested in, that you see that perhaps something might be beneficial for the community. And I think that's it, because you're the bulk of the work of the commission is really that CLA application too.
If I could just ask, in some, is the biggest lift the inventory of the building, technology to support our ongoing approvals, as well as 5 years of history on that? Like, what is the what would your organization seek from the commission? Like, what's the biggest piece of work we have to do?
We would seek the annual reporting, the audit. We would look at and see maybe when your last survey was done, like, hey, maybe you guys want to update a survey. You're not required to, but maybe you might want to consider that. You don't need to re-survey and document your historic district. I would assume you have maps and documentation that say this is our district already in place, or these are our districts in place. So you know who should be coming to you for review. The technology, I'm not sure about the technology, what that refers to, because it seems like you have your information online, the minutes, your applications. You're not required to create some mapping program, of course. That's really just if you see the need and the benefit and the finances are there. Not everybody has that. So I'm not sure the technology, what that might be for you guys.
I was interpreting it as having a record for every house or building inside the district where you're tracking the changes over time, and there would be some database of sort that you would have to track that. I mean, I don't think we have anything near that right now. I mean, obviously we have our records of what we've decided on, but nothing that is really mapping out all of the different properties and the change over time.
Does the state offer something at the state level that the municipalities and townships can use?
You can actually, we have on that, Chris, the database, you can go in there, every building in the historic district. We have the National Register districts, which I think they are somewhat the same as the local districts. We have points for every building in the district. Photos would be, if it's been updated recently. We have the National Register nomination, which should have hopefully a building listed. I'm not sure when it was listed. So you can use that information that we already have. I know Sag Harbor is a CLG, and they use the National Register nomination for their village district really as reference material, and they maintain it that way. I don't think that's been updated probably since the 90s. Oh, actually, no, they did survey, they did get a grant, and they did survey, get some updated photos recently, but they use that National Register documentation as reference. They don't go out and create something new. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. So we can, you can certainly use Chris and what we have there to create a spreadsheet. We have reporting. You can download each building as a PDF, an inventory form. So you can just download all that stuff for your records as well.
Just a comment, Linda. I'm sort of more in the record keeping world than most of the other commissioners anyway, at least on this. And to be a little bit, I don't even feel defensive. Between ourselves and Craig, we actually have excellent records on everything that happened in the historic district, the applications, the certificates, drawings, etc. I would argue that what we've got may not be terribly electronic, but is as complete as I think any other city our size would have. And we have another aspect, which I don't think every city or town our size would have, which is full-time code enforcement. So we cover a lot of bases that actually other communities do not. The decision from the last review is after attending meetings and looking at some of our record keeping, et cetera, that we were deemed by SHPO to be absolutely fully qualified. The hang up issue, as I said, was agreeing to modifications of 169 and the politics around that of moving it through the Common Council. But we got a gold star last time, and I think we would again for what structure we have to data.
Would we have to get approval from the Common Council to become a certified local government? Or could we just apply as a commission and be?
I believe not, but we can't change a hair on the code.
We have some questions from the audience, Phil. Maybe you want to, Michael and Ronald.
Why don't you lead that for a second, John? I've got to grab something.
Sure, of course. Michael, you want to speak?
Yeah, actually, there's someone, Pamela Wolf had her hand up before me.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
That's okay.
Pamela, are you there? You want to speak?
Yeah, hi. It's actually Rebecca Wolf on my mom's computer.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for the presentation. I was wanting to ask something of Linda about how does her organization assist local organizations that are members of her organization with essentially working with the low and middle income communities with regards to historic preservation and some of the traditional difficulties that arise when, in basically the intersection between historical preservation and affordable housing, or simply low income people's properties, I'm curious about that because it does seem totally possible to me that membership in this organization could exacerbate some problems that already exist for Hudson, which is a very low income community in general. The median income is, I think, $35,000 a year or something like that. So that's my question.
So how we work, well, we try to help with the financial side, I would say, by offering the Historic Tax Credit Program. Definitely for homeowners, it helps to, make those changes in a more affordable manner. If you make, for the state credit, the state homeowner credit, if you make less than 60,000, you get it back as a refund. So it's not even a credit, it's a refund, which is great. And we try and find affordable ways to help make those appropriate changes, because we understand there are other programs. We try and see other state federal agencies, what programs they offer to help as far as any low income tax credits, other grant programs. We try to reach out to statewide nonprofit partners to see if they have programs, because we want to kind of help bridge that retaining character, retaining the sense of place, but also helping residents, we're not all millionaires, helping residents maintain their home, but in an affordable manner. And we could certainly do public workshops, tax credit workshops, to help with that, because I just really touched high level today. So we can get in greater detail at a separate presentation.
Okay, my question though is more, how does your organization assist local groups with bridging that gap? Because like in Hudson, for example, there's traditionally a huge disjunction between what you might call the historic preservation community and the low-income community. So like public workshops are unlikely to be attended by any of the people who might benefit from them. And overall, there's a real problem in Hudson with programs and things that are designed to assist low-income people actually reaching those people.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my real question, is like, what kind of like outreach innovations, you might say, are you working on in your organization?
And if I could interject also, you're not looking to change our code. The regulations that are currently in place are going to be the same regulations whether we're certified local government or not. So I think Rebecca's question is reasonable. Is there anything you offer? But it's not going to change the way we evaluate properties, the way we enforce the code as written. And also, let's not forget, I think Victoria could speak to it, we do have a hardship provision with that. So maybe you could just speak to, if anything, if there is any role, and maybe you just have, what it would be.
I have to speak to some of my higher level questions, but something that we can do is work with the Historic Commission, work with the city, and offer guidance. If they have any questions, we're there to help. We will not change the code. The process is the process. There is a hardship. There are steps in place to protect the owner of these properties as well. That's what the law is supposed to be there for. But we're there just as a resource if the commission, or if the property owner has questions. I've had property owners reach out to me, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me check with the commission. Let's see, how can we meet in the middle? How can I help both parties? So we're there kind of sometimes as a mediator, but it's really, if there's something that we can help with, if there is a program, if there are guidance, if there's resources that we have, we certainly try to provide those to the commission to help them also help the community.
Thank you so much. Michael, can I turn it over to you? What's your question?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily a question. I want to thank you, Linda, for coming and making this presentation. I'm the mayor's aide here in Hudson, and I just wanted to first off say that the mayor's office definitely absolutely supports the application for Hudson to become a certified local government. I've been pushing for this for like a year, so I'm really happy that you're here, Linda, to talk more about it. And I also just wanted to respond to comments earlier about grant applications. I would be very surprised if there was ever a grant application that the Historic Preservation Commission would be doing on its own. The mayor's office is contracted with a grant writing firm that would assist if there was anything that the Historic Preservation did want to do specifically, that would come through the mayor's office, and we would help and guide the process for that application. I also think there's a lot of other community groups in the area that are interested in accessing some of the funds that are available under the program to do project-specific work. So those folks would also be interested and be helping out with the preparation of those applications. So I don't want the commission to feel overly burdened or like worried about being able to put in the work to prepare grant applications under this program, because there's a lot of other folks and a lot of other support that would be provided to you for that process.
Thank you for that color. And I would also say, Michael, thank you, because you've been an advocate for this since you became the mayor's aide, and we really appreciate it. Ronald, can I take your question now?
Yes, well, first a comment. If there's any question of revising the code, I am assuming that the public will be allowed to weigh in at some point in the process. And second, I would like to say, whatever the source of the grant, I think it might be useful for the commission to be able, for example, to hire a staffer or two in order to help with certain procedures. For example, monitoring the status of buildings, making sure that what has been approved in the certificate of granting of a certificate of appropriateness is actually what ends up being done. Because in my experience in the past in New York City, I mean, the lesson is designation is one thing and regulation is something else. I mean, many people are very thrilled when a building or a district gets designated, but the real issue is ongoing monitoring of what happens and making sure that what has been approved is actually what ends up getting done.
Sure.
So
I would
thank-
remind you though, we have our excellent code enforcement officer. And,
Right.
and we are, and you know what else? This is not New York City, so people are.
No, I know it's a much.
There's lots of watchers everywhere.
Okay, I know they have a huge staff in the city and they need to have one. And I don't want to criticize code enforcement, but it seems to me you might be able to use a staffer or two, maybe preservation interns, for example, who are interested in preservation and are studying it at one school or another to help you out and lessen the burden.
We'll send you an application right away, Ronald.
Well, if you want me to do it, I'm of a certain age, but thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments for Linda?
Yes, I just wanted to make, respond to Rebecca's question earlier, which is a very good and important one. I think the situation is that this certified local government would offer benefits to the community that we don't currently have.
Yeah.
Access to grants and so forth. And so it would be up to us to figure out how to reach out to low-income communities to make them aware of the benefits that this might give them.
I don't think it's up to us, Miranda. I think it's up to
Well,
the
I mean,
community
it's up
as a
to us
whole,
as the
all of
city.
it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point, an excellent opportunity to actually, to actually support both the code and lower income property owners. It sounds like there's much more opportunity than there is now under something like this. And maybe that was Michael's point as well.
Thanks.
Anything else? If not, I would say, Linda, thank you so much. We've had this on our agenda for so many months, and having you here is crystallize a conversation. All right, I didn't want to say that. Let's crystallize a conversation, and thank you, Michael, again for your constant enthusiasm. And Jeremy, thank you for taking the time as a commissioner for sitting down and actually thinking about this. So we will be in touch, and this is something that I think
Paul played a huge role in this, so I
and you
just
too,
want to
Paul,
call
I'm
him
so
out.
sorry. No, that's the danger of thank yous. You always forget someone. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? Jeremy and Miranda, thank you. Everyone have a great weekend and Labor Day. We'll see you in September.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Linda.